prostitution has been going on for thousands of years. If you look generationally, this type of abuse, pedophiles and that type of thing has been happening for a very long time. And so it's not anything real new. It's just now more into the light.
When parents are listening to this and they're just like oblivious or ignorant to some of the horrors out there, what is oftentimes happening to children under 5 years old that a lot of ignorant parents would not even think is out there and exists?
Most of the time it's going to be from maybe an older sibling's friend. If you're talking more specifically about trafficking, it's usually a parent.
And we are live. Nate, how are you, brother?
Hey, man, I'm good. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited to chat with you. We got connected through Aaron, who's just a rock star at getting people connected. I got a feeling I'm just going to get mad as we're talking throughout this conversation. And I'm hopeful that you'll be able to bring some hope, make it full circle, be a light in the tunnel. But it's unfortunate that there is a demand for organizations like yours in the first place, man.
Yeah. Well, I don't even know if demand's the right word, but necessary.
Need, yeah.
Right? It really is necessary. It's sad. But here's the thing. For those that don't know what's going on and what we're talking about, we'll get into some of this sex trafficking and exploitation and stuff. Current day, problems. But prostitution has been going on for thousands of years, and so even if you look generationally, this type of abuse, pedophiles and that type of thing has been happening for a very long time. And so it's not anything real new. It's just now more into the light. And, through the Sound of Freedom, a lot of people became aware of some of more specific trafficking issues. But it's probably more prevalent and easier now to exploit people because it's all digital. Yeah. And, before we used to go into brothels or strip clubs and, have to go in undercover with cameras and all that, where now everybody's online, hiding their IPs, hiding their identity. And so it's just a little different game now, honestly.
Yeah, it's let's peel the curtain back on it, man. So you are the man behind the Innocent organization. And when did you start that?
2 years ago, we started. I worked in this arena, mostly international, for several years before. And it was really the people who were like, what are we doing here in America? I want to donate money, but I wanted to stay in my state at least. And it's like, man, a lot of people are requesting this. Let's figure that out. And so we just decided, my team's all law enforcement, active duty. We have one retired guy who was like, what do we got to do? Like, where's the gaps? And we figured it out. We came up with a game plan, built all this training, all this stuff. It took us a little while to kind of get that ironed out. And then we just started deploying it. And man, we had people hitting us up, departments, states, attorney generals. And now, we're pretty effective now, what we do going into communities. And really, essentially what we do is we protect and preserve the innocence of children in the United States. That's our focus. And we go into a community, and so we'll take their top investigators from a department that will host it, and then surrounding agencies will send their top investigators. We build somewhat of a quasi task force, so to speak, 12 to 25 individuals who all go through a scaled operations course, so you can scale it up or down, but it's really operational planning. And then we give them all roles and responsibilities. We run a live op during the operation, usually leads to an arrest. That's really our bread and butter. We have another course that, depending on if these investigators have experience building undercover online personas and avoiding entrapment and all the other technical things. We have another class that comes in that kind of leads up to this, so that you have dates already set up, so when we come in, they're ready to really run the operation of undercover sting and arrest these guys. So, setting that up prior to us arriving.
What's the backstory on all of this to begin with? Like you were prior law enforcement before getting into this, right?
No, I wasn't actually. All of my team is law enforcement. I'm the only one. Well, and my assistant, who's a survivor of trafficking, we are law enforcement. My background is, strangely enough, I came from Hollywood. I worked with Jim Caviezel, still do. He's a good friend of mine. He played in The Sound of Freedom. Through that, it was an introduction to go work with the guy that he played in the movie. And then from that experience led me to here, to focus here in the United States. My background and my story really is personal to this, being sexually abused and then being kidnapped in my life. And that really makes it personal to me and fuels my passion and my desire to go out and make sure this doesn't happen, prevent it. That's really what we're in, the prevention business. How do we proactively get cops to go into these places and get to them before they can continue to abuse people, and instead of reacting to a crime that's already been committed?
Yeah. Do you openly share that personal backstory, or do you keep that private?
I didn't for a long time. I recently started sharing it. I would share it with people after an event or somewhere, and they're like, man, why don't you share that? That's powerful. And I don't know, man. Most people who've been through some of these things, it takes a while to share it. For me, the first person I told, I think, really was my mom. And that was like 19 years after it happened, the sexual
Yeah.
abuse. And then I never really want to. It's not something you are proud of. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The kidnapping thing I talked about a lot. And actually I was much older, and that I think what was completely different is one I didn't talk about for most of my life, and the other one I felt like I just needed to talk about it and get it out, and it was just in my head so much I just needed to dump it constantly. And people were so curious, and everybody wanted to know. As soon as they're like, "Wait, what? You were kidnapped? Tell me." Still to this day, this decades later, everybody wants to hear the details of it. So it was easier for me to just kind of walk through that. I think I'm fully healed from that experience. I would say it still probably affects me in certain ways. But for the most part, I feel like I'm pretty much healed from that. But yeah, I've started talking about that publicly.
Well, this is the first time we've ever talked. You don't know me from Adam, but man, if you want to elaborate on any of that backstory, I mean, the floor is yours, and I feel like it definitely makes people just relate to the perspective you're bringing to the table, and I feel like it just brings all that more depth to what it is you're offering with the organization.
Yeah, well, I guess we should start with innocence. That's our mission, is to protect and preserve the innocence of children, right? And I know for me personally, and I see it, I have young children who still have their innocence, and I watch people's innocence get taken from them, unfortunately. And I guess for me, I have to start there. That's why we're called the innocent. We work for the innocent children. It's really who we work for. And so for me, I didn't have conversations. This is a lot about, I think this is a really good place to start, actually, because a lot of this that I'm going to talk about is really conversations that parents need to have with their children. Because if I would have had a conversation with my parents, any conversation, I probably would have got out of a certain scenario or a certain situation, because I was walking into a whole new planet, right? My parents didn't have the birds and bees talks. They didn't have any talks about anything. Couldn't watch people kiss on TV. It was like, avoid those uncomfortable conversations. So that when this was happening and I had no idea about anything, I was being told that, hey, this is normal. This is fine. This is good. This is, oh, you don't know, like the things that I was being told for the first time, I believed. I mean, kids believe in Santa Claus, right? So you told things and you believe them. And so I wish that I could have had those conversations. And so that's one of the things I think is so critical about these conversations. And it's really important, even with my kids. If you follow us on Instagram, there's a lot of resources that we're providing. And one of the ones that we did was age-appropriate conversations. So as my kids being 4 and 6, I don't have to have birds and bees conversations or cell phone or social media conversations. But I do have conversations about what's an appropriate touch, what's an appropriate place, and what do you do if someone does touch you in those regions, right? Because in my line of work, I've seen children younger than my children be abused. So I know it can happen, and it can happen from people that they know or trust. 90% actually of abuse happens from somebody that they know or trust. And that's from the Department of Justice, that stat. And so I think that starting there is like, where do we have these conversations to protect our children? And they're hard conversations, but healing from these acts are much more difficult for the child than they are having a conversation with them. And so I think you have to figure out what the age appropriate is. And then we can talk. I can talk for 2 hours here, but we can also talk about the social media thing and phones. And people always ask me, what's the age? What do you do? And, the reality is that you may keep your kids off the phone and social media, but their friends' parents don't. So they're going to have access to it. And so I go to the analogy of driving a car. We spend tons of hours and months driving, practicing driving, taking tests, all that, just so that our kids are safe actually the seatbelt and all the airbags and all that, but you're really teaching them how to drive and be aware of dangers and things, right? Always on alert so that they can go out there on driving the road and just be safe instead of just throwing them keys and saying, good luck. It's the same thing. I think that you have to set these boundaries and understand as a parent, what are they navigating in this digital world that we live in today? What are they going to see? Parents used to say, don't take candy from a stranger. Now it's don't take comments from a stranger. And that means on your social media, how these predators are getting they just need to get in first and then they can manipulate. They're getting in through direct messages, through following on Instagram or other platforms. They're open accounts so these people can instantly become your friend. And I call it stalk you, literally, because you don't even know they're stalking every post, looking at all your stuff, maybe screen recording or even saving some of your photos. But that's how they get in. And then they start flattering. They start offering them things, whether it's $300 an hour for modeling, nice purses, whatever it may be, getting their attention, showing them money, promising them like, oh, I can make you an influencer. There's all kinds of things, but it goes back to don't take comments from a stranger, right? Their access to the world is in the palm of their hand, but more importantly, the world has access to them through the palm of their hand. And I think that that's the dangers of potentially kids losing their innocence. And some of us are slow, but I'll tell you a real true story. We pose as children sometimes online, and some of our first messages that we get as soon as we accept the friend request or whatever it may be, that connection is a photo of a grown man saying, rate my fill in the blank. And that is the 11-year-old who we were pretending to be. That can slowly or suddenly start peeling away layers of innocence from that child. May never have even had that conversation with their parents, what that is. And all of a sudden a grown man is sending them that photo. So there's so many waters to navigate out there. And I think that it's important for parents to understand the dangers that are really out there, not to be scared, be paranoid, but just be realistic. And so that's probably one area I would start with my interaction with a stranger, making me believe things because I hadn't had a conversation. The kidnapping thing, whole nother story. Oh man, I don't even know where to begin with that one. It affected me for a minimum of 10 years pretty severely. I don't even know where to start with that one. Brutal.
How old were you?
I was 23 or 22 or 23. So I was a little bit older, but it was a gang initiation, and it was 3 individuals put a gun in my chest when I was just walking home and at night. And it went on a joyride, and luckily got out alive. And had to face them in court, 2 of them, and went through the whole court process. I think maybe the significant thing about that was understanding, be very careful how I say this, the judicial system and how it works firsthand, being a victim and not being felt like I was a victim, and it didn't seem like they cared about me. They were more worried about getting promoted and their case being strong and not protecting me or my safety. And these people knew where I lived. They took my ID. They told me if I went to the cops, they would kill me. So I was fearful of my life, trying to move. I didn't want to see them and whoever else was going to show up in court, follow me home. And I felt like I wasn't being protected. And then just, hearing some of the things that went on, it was like completely blew my mind how things were being handled on the inside. Right. And so I think that was an awakening, knowing what it's like to take the stand and face people who, victimized me, and having to see them again and knowing what that's like as a victim, puts it into perspective for me when you see these children who are younger than me having to face and the fears they have are real. A lot of times these girls, mostly girls, don't want to come forward because they don't understand what's next. They also think, I've had girls say, well, they have their own kids, and if I say something, they're going to take their kids away from them. Damn right they're going to, as they should. And we're going to actually probably have to interview these children to see if anything's happened at home. But we have to stop this from happening, and they need to be courageous. But the fears are real, and I think that maybe that was part of why I went through that, was to understand I had fears. They were valid to me. They weren't valid to the investigators and the detectives, which is my whole team now, is all detectives. And we're trying to really approach this differently. And I think it's important for people, especially law enforcement, to understand that this isn't volunteers volunteering their time like Pretty Women, the movie. These are victims, and we have to approach it different. And we have to get out of our cruise control, where 99 probably percent of the time you are interrogating criminals. This is not an interrogation. It's a different approach. This is a relationship that you're building with another human being who has severe trauma. It's not even close to the same. And so that's part of the education that I think we have to continue to bring forward. And law enforcement has to continue to turn and take turns in understanding. I had a sheriff tell me, "Oh, we've arrested this 16-year-old twice now. She just makes poor choices." And I said, "Well, did you ever ask her how she got here at 16? Was it really her choice? And at what point how are you treating her like a human being?" We always say that you come in the first question, because they're going to get questioned. And when you get questioned, you start to tell yourself, they don't believe me. And there's a lot of other things that come with it. But the first question should be, what's your favorite food? And then you should go buy that food for them. And you shouldn't require anything from them until they're ready to share, because they've been required for who knows how long to do something, provide something. And so now you're just kind of pushing that envelope a little further of, I need something from you. I need something from you. And so there's a lot of education around it, in addition to the investigations and avoided entrapment and how do you go undercover online and build these personas and all that other stuff too. But when you're talking about dealing with live human children, we have to take just a caring approach. Honestly, That's what it comes down to, and build that relationship.
So when you're is there a specific age demographic that you're primarily working with, or how is that structured?
So a lot of what we deal with are the criminal side, right? And so when you say deal with, we're focusing our energy on whether it's a pedophile or predator, or a pimp, trafficker, or somebody that may be selling their own children, or somebody that's a criminal doing criminal activity. So we don't really target children in a sense. So the age demographic. Now, I will say, I guess I got to go back on what I just said, under the age of 18. So we focus 100% on children. Now, if there's a 20-year-old, we're not just going to be like, "Oh, sorry, you're 20, peace." Of course not. But our focus is those abusing minors. Now, different states have different statutes. So depending upon your state, we try to, I don't want to give away too much information, but the highest degree of felony is where we want to sit at. So if they're going to go for a 14-year-old, or, maybe you could get them to an 11-year-old, completely different. They get completely different charges for those type of things, just because of the age, right? And so there's also other things and other steps and other crimes, and depending on what they're doing and what they're sending or what they're saying or what they're taking that next step and showing up, there's just certain things. But we don't usually ever go above 14. Unfortunately, and man, I can talk for 30 minutes on the judicial system and what this looks like, and prosecutors and judges and all that stuff. And, we're trying to build the most sound cases. But unfortunately, you're going to have defense attorneys, if you're 16, they're going to fight against you, where it's a little bit, if it does end up going to trial, which most of them don't, it's hard to argue with a grown adult trying to meet up with the 11-year-old. Even 16 is wrong. I'm not saying that it's not, but there's defense attorneys that will defend their client to the bitter end about, them meeting up with a 16-year-old and why that shouldn't be a problem, because it's legal in some countries, right?
What what are like the most common cases you're seeing? Like, what is that typically, like common denominators, I guess, across the board with, involving children? Like, what are you typically dealing with, I guess?
Uh, okay, more
It's kind of a
specifically,
loaded
what do you
question
mean?
because
Like,
there's all kinds of stuff you're dealing with. But like when you're like, so this all hits home to me because I got two sons now, so I'm a parent. I'm trying to like do the right by them. I want to keep them safe. Like and we're homeschooling, at least here in the beginning. So I feel like we can keep them pretty much at arm's length. But like
Mhm.
when parents, for instance, are listening to this and they're just like oblivious or ignorant to some of the horrors out there, like what is oftentimes happening to children under 5 years old that a lot of ignorant parents would not even think is out there and exists.
Yeah, so five's pretty young. So I would say that in my experience, now I don't know the whole world and every single detail, but in my experience, usually there is a potential of being abused. Maybe it's daycare, but most of the time, and I'm not going to say all the other organizations of where that could come from, but most of the time it's going to be from maybe an older sibling's friend, right? Potentially. And so that can kind of get tricky as well. But if you're talking more specifically about trafficking, it's usually a parent. I mean, it's overwhelming. We actually do sting operations where most of the time we're a parent selling our children. And actually, about 2 weeks ago, we had a parent, a father, show up with their younger than 5. I'm not going to give too many details. Children trying to trade for a 14-year-old because he could make more money from a 14-year-old.
And what are they selling? Like what even happens? Like you're a parent, you have a kid, and you sell your kid into what? Like what are they doing?
Well, they sell them to somebody else that wants to use them to make money. Many different ways. I don't know how graphic you want me to be. I'll try to keep it. I don't want to put people in therapy after this, but I think that it's important also for people to know there is some sickness out in the world, and you can hide from it or you can stomach it for a moment to just realize that this is out there. And I'm not making this stuff up, but I've seen an individual who's supposed to be babysitting his nephew at his sister's house while she goes to work, 2 years old, running live streams for these sick predator groups out there, pedophiles, to do live requests to the 2-year-old boy on camera for them, and they pay. And I'm not talking like an extraordinary amount of money. They're paying minimal amount of money, I would say, compared to an hour's worth with the 14-year-old, to times 20, 30 people that show up there for the live stream. And this person's making money live streaming sexual abuse of his own nephew that's 2 years old to make money, right? Many parents will sell their child for sex, for drugs. They want to pay for drugs. And what do they have? They don't really have a job. They don't have a way to make money on their own. These people are interested in the mom, so they have their own child. And so they can say, hey, for $150, I'll let you sleep with my daughter. And then they do, and then they get the money, and then she goes and buys the drugs, right? So there's so many scenarios. I mean, I could talk for 24 hours straight about scenarios, but it's shocking to me, parents selling their own kids. Here's another one. If you go on our social media, I think this is one of our pin posts up there. It's the one with the orange jumpsuit guy in handcuffs. If you look for the image of that one, this is a true story, and you're going to hear it if you go watch this video. I think we arrested 12 guys within like almost 48 hours in a small-ish town, less than 70,000 people. Actually, it's my hometown. It's where we first started doing operations. Anyway, this specific one. So when we run these undercover operations, we have different type of teams. So there's people in the op center. There's all kinds of people doing different roles on these operations. And then we have takedown teams, which are basically like SWAT guys, arrest teams that go in that have tactical experience, how to approach vehicles and take these guys into custody, right? That's what they do. They break down doors, they arrest guys. They don't go online and pretend to be a child. They don't really know what goes on behind the curtain. And here's what these guys found out behind the curtain. They arrest them and they confiscate their phone, okay? They don't even have to turn their phone on or unlock it or anything. They just hit the power button on the side that pulls up their wallpaper. Whoop, I'm a little off focus. It pulls up their wallpaper on their phone. And what was shocking to most of these people who made comments afterwards, like, I couldn't believe how many of these guys that we arrested on their phone wallpaper was a picture of them and their children or them and their family. You know, they're just family people, like with kids at home showing up to have sex with child. Like, that was mind blowing to them. To us, after a while, it's not shocking. I mean, we talk to high school teachers often who are around children. Now, at this point, on one particular, the guy that taught at my high school, so anybody looking into me, you can figure this out pretty quick. He talked for a long time and wanted photos and all this stuff, and we got everything we needed. And then he's like, whoa, 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 oh, I thought you were 18. Now, yeah, oh, you're 18, so I can legally have sex with you. But I'm 52, I'm married and have kids, and I'm around kids that aren't 18 at school all day long. That's wrong. There's something wrong with that, right? I don't think that at the age of 18, there's this magic wand that says, oh, yeah, you should be able to have sex with a 50-year-old now. I think that still is wrong. And I think that those people need to be on a watch list, and potentially, if they're there, they're going to creep potentially to a younger age at some point, I think.
Man, this is just, I don't even know what to think, man, especially now that I am a father. It like puts everything into perspective, and it's like, you know, I think we all inherently know there's so much like evil and sickness in the world, but then like hearing it tangibly, I don't even have words. Like what is, and where does it all come from? Where does this sickness and evil come from? Like, why in the world would an individual, especially one that seemingly has their shit together with, you know, functional family, kids, career, like, why do they feel it necessary to pursue these paths that are just blatantly, obviously evil?
Yeah, I think there's levels of disgust. I'll kind of start low level. Usually those who have been abused at that age get somewhat stuck in that age. They've been abused, and then it creates behaviors, changes sometimes even who they want to be and their gender, to be honest with you, because they were raped by a male and they don't ever want a male to be attracted to them again, right? I've seen that. That's a real story. And so depending on if that individual has been abused in their own lifetime, they're much higher likely to abuse somebody else. Asking and talking to individuals, you know, they had a fantasy when they were in high school of this girl, maybe a cheerleader, and never had a potential or even close to an opportunity to even have a conversation with them. And so these are like fantasies that they're living out from their childhood. Another one is maybe they started with looking at Girls Gone Wild or a swimsuit issue, I don't know, whatever, and that provoked the dopamines that are going on in their body. And then after a while, just like any drug, and that reaction, those receptors and all the things that are occurring real time in your body aren't as peaked anymore. So they start looking at harder content. Maybe it's younger because now like, oh, what's that? They get curious. Some of the areas start feeding you some of that stuff. So now they're progressed. And sometimes that takes months. Sometimes it takes years, but they've degressed, I guess, in a sense. And then honestly, I think I would say prominently, I don't know how else to explain it. I don't have any scientific background to prove this. I just think they're born with something sick. I don't know, or they've become possessed or something, because the things that they are doing and the way that they think, and even to have conceived these ideas, is so beyond human that I think it's a sickness. I don't even know if you can be groomed into that type of behavior. I don't even know how long it would take. I think they're just born like a mentally ill disease. I don't know. I don't know how to explain it, because there's some really, I won't even explain it here, but there's some insanely sick, perverted individuals. And I think they're like rabid dogs, you know? And I think they need to be treated like rabid dogs too. Honestly, I don't think you can fix it. I know people say, oh, well, give them a chance. They can be healed and this. I don't know. honestly don't. And honestly, if you've already crossed the line and you abuse them, I'm not willing to take the risk of having you do it again to somebody else and ruin their life. Take their life from them, a child's life, ruin it forever.
Yeah.
You know, it's just not worth it.
What are some of the stats with regards to, like, is it more prevalent for abuse and kidnapping in like the young females versus young males? Like, what are some just the basic stats that a lot of people may not be privy to?
Yeah, so it's about 80% of sexual abuse for children under the age of 18 is going to be females, unfortunately. So that's why when I talk a lot about she's, her. Now, males will be abused. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of males out there that have been sexually abused. Sometimes it's what we're seeing a lot, and we actually use this in our operations. Why wouldn't we? The homosexual community, they're into males and males, right? They're wanting young boys there too. It's a fantasy of theirs. So we'll see that prominently, and they'll show up. Now, here's an interesting thing, and I don't know how much detail I can give, but I don't know why it is, but they're not as cautious either, you know? So I don't know. I don't know how to explain that, to be honest with you. If there's, by the way, the innocent.usa on Instagram, most of our handles are the innocent.usa. There's tons of stats. You guys can just scroll through them, read them. There's lots of resources, and you can comment certain things. We'll send you a PDF, guides, free guides for you to just kind of what to navigate, what does grooming look like, those type of things. So if you have any of those questions and you're watching and you want to know, you can go that or sign up for our email. Theinnocent.org is our website. And in that email, we're constantly providing information and giving you guys, you know, we have an education team that we're partnering up with that we're going to be launching here very soon, like really soon. So those are just resources for you guys to be able to have at your fingertips, and for your children, for your school, for teachers, counselors, school resource officers. And so just, you know, I would say for the stats and stuff, check out our Instagram and get signed up for our email. There's a lot of staggering stats. You know, 43 million people living in the United States right now were sexually abused as a child. 43 million. That's 32 Super Bowl or NFL stadiums filled up like 30 times. It's an insane number that you can't fathom, right? This is just proof that this has been going on. Children have been sexually abused for quite some time.
And most of the ones in the younger demographic, like from a statistic standpoint, that's typically done by people that would be in the inner circle that you would think you could trust. Like that's normally the case. That's the one that has access, yeah. Right?
90% is done by somebody they know or trust. Yep. 90%.
How do you freaking hedge against that? Like if you're, you know, a young parent needing help, you know, you enlist the help of close family and friends thinking you're doing right. And that's where you get led astray.
Man, it goes back to that conversation. Like I said, with my kids, they know at 4 and 6, they already know. Like no one, not even at this point, they don't have diapers. So mom and dad don't even touch you there. Right? Why would I ever touch my child there? I don't need to. Now, if there was like an infection or something, like, of course, there's emergency situations where you would need to do that, but that's for them. And if anyone, this is what just my belief in what I teach my kids, because I see too much, because they can manipulate young children. And if you ingrain that over and over and over, that is for you and you only, right? At a young age, and then you can explain later about birds and bees and all that stuff. But I'm talking about at 4 and 6. Absolutely zero tolerance. Zero. If even anybody even asks you, you make a hell of a scene. If anyone does anything, you tell them to stop loudly, make a scene, grab people's attention, say, I don't know who this gentleman is. I don't know this man. Help, right? I don't know. And then tell somebody like me, or ask somebody to call the police to get somebody there. They know all my guys are cops. We have barbecues together. They're super tight with cops. So they already have that relationship with them, but they know you have to have those conversations. Again, it goes back to what I said earlier. My parents didn't have a conversation, so I believed anything that I was told, right?
Yeah.
But if my parents would have told me, like, very young age, hey, look, I know you're going to see Santa at the mall, And he's going to look just like Santa, and he's going to have a beard, and he's going to be red, suit on. There's probably going to be elves there. Even Mrs. Claus might be there. There's going to be presents. There's going to be lots of kids lined up to get presents. I promise you that. But I'm going to tell you right now, Santa's not real. Santa is not real. And they probably would have been like, oh, it's fake. It's all fake. And he probably would have been like, oh. And at least in their mind, they know, like, okay, I get it. Because my kids do ask, like, hey, is that real? Hey, is Batman real? Is Spider-Man real? I think I'm honest about everything. Now, look, I'm going to play out the Santa thing for as long as I can. I'm not going to tell them that it's not. But for the most part, we try to be just straight up with them. But that's what I'm saying is like, whatever you tell them, they're going to believe you. And you have to have those conversations. It's so critical. Probably the most important thing you can do to protect your children.
Yeah.
Now, look, I will say as a parent, I don't just jump right into the deep end and be like, oh, by the way, I want to tell you, this is what's going to happen. People are going to want to touch you. And no. You just slowly start having conversations like, hey, you know, what do you want to call it? You know, do you want to call it by its actual name, or do you have a name that is cute? You know, and you start having those names, then maybe that's the first conversation. It's like, hey, well, the actual official name is this. This is what we call it. And then, okay. And then that can lead into like, hey, you know that's just for you, right? No one else should be asking to see it or touch it. And if they do, what are you supposed to do? See if they can answer it by one. And then just gradually get into it. You got to just kind of feel it out as a parent. But man, I'm telling you, it's the biggest mistake you'll make in your life if you don't.
Yeah.
And people are going to say like, oh, well, I'm just going to take my chances. It's not going to happen to my kids. Okay, well, 1 in 3 girls will be sexually abused before they turn 18. So you're taking a hell of a risk. 1 in 4 boys. So I would say, most likely if you have 3 girls in your house, 1 of them will be sexually abused before they're 18. And I can't remember, 1 in 5 children under the age of 18 will be solicited for sex online before they turn 18. Why? Because there's 37 million teenagers on social media in the United States alone right now. 37 million. It's a cesspool of children. And guess who knows that? All these sickos. Because they're not going to go to a park where there's cameras identifying their license plate and facial recognition and all that stuff. They're going to hide behind some firewall VPN, thinking they're hiding their IP address, and they're going to make up a fake account on this fake social media, and they're going to access your children, or they're spending most of their time online. It's just the new world that we live in today. This just reality. So you need to have these conversations with your kids, period. You're doing your kid a disservice by not communicating. And if you can't have those conversations, I go back to the very first most important thing. Building a relationship with your child, a safe place that they trust that can come to you. And guess what? You're probably going to have to use certain things that go against your natural desires, where they say, and this has happened tons of times, and I've had to tell parents all the time, don't take their phone from them. Oh, what? No way. I'm taking it for 2 weeks. What's that going to do? They're going to hide everything from you and never tell you the truth ever again. Period. Why wouldn't they? I did it as a kid. But when you're open and you tell them, hey, if this ever happens, I promise you will not get in trouble, and you follow through with that. Hey, thank you for being honest and telling me the truth. You're not in trouble. You can keep your phone, and I appreciate you for coming to me and being honest with me. And the next step is we probably need to report this to law enforcement, and then law enforcement can take over that account or whatever it may be, depending on what's going on online and what conversations. But creating that relationship, if you don't have that, then you can't even have the conversation. Yeah. Right? You have to have those relationships with your child. They're tough. And I know you said you have young children, and so do I, but I can't tell you how many parents I deal with. And I fear the moments that I have to deal with my kids having conversations about phones and social media. Because you tell a kid they can't have a phone and social media, you're their enemy right now. Right? All my friends have them.
Yeah, man. Like social media is tricky. I guess. I mean, do you know any of the stats on like how old are most kids when they're given a phone with access to social media? Like, is that what is
yeah,
the
I actually know that stat. I think it's on our site too. I want to say 12, but I know as early as 8 or 9 they're getting phones. But so I think the average is 12 years old when they're getting a phone.
So these kids are getting a phone pre-puberty, and first thing they're doing is probably making a social media account. What is the prevalent social accounts that kids of that age are making? Is it like TikTok now is the big one?
TikTok's huge for everyone. TikTok, Instagram, Snapchat. Those are the most for young kids. There's a couple other ones I'm not even going to mention because I don't want kids on them. And then you've seen the video game platforms. I'm sure people have seen a lot of this stuff out there. Anywhere that somebody can talk to your child and hide their identity is potentially a risk. Gaming systems, phones, through these platforms. Parents, listen to this. Key thing to hear me out on. Talk to your child about this. If they're talking to somebody they don't know, and that individual says, hey, let's get off of this messaging system and come over to this one that you've never heard of. You just have to go download it from the App Store. Number one, massive red flag, massive. And do not ever do that. Do not ever do that.
What is their motive? And is it just untracked? Like, is it like a encrypted app they're typically trying to get them to move over to? Somewhat.
Really what it is that a lot of these big billion-dollar companies, Instagram, Snapchat, whatever, they know what's going on as much as they're enabling certain things and not allowing us to educate people, which is a whole nother topic. They actually have divisions where law enforcement can actually, they work well with law enforcement. That's all I'm going to say. And if it's an imminent threat or something, usually within 12, sometimes within an hour or two, they get you the things that you need, right? And you can really, on some of these things, it's one of the hardest parts is identifying the person online, okay? So they're going to do everything they can to hide their identity, right? So when they move to that other platform that's built in the Middle East somewhere, there's no way you're identifying them, and the company that built that won't give you any information. None. So good luck. They live out in the ether somewhere.
Gotcha. But like the big ones that are prevalent in the U.S., like the Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, like those play well with law enforcement?
Absolutely, when it's required and when it's necessary. They really well. Some of them better than others, but absolutely. They have a whole division that works with law enforcement. Yeah, no, they work really well. They work really well. Now, that being said, I'm not going to give them all props because just this morning, I'm getting warnings that my posts about exactly what we're talking about, literally, if you look at the most recent post about this phone is the new candy that they're giving their kids, and how the playground isn't really a playground, it's digital. I can't even promote that because it goes against community standards.
Yeah, it's got to be like a double-edged sword for you because you're putting out content that I'm sure their automated system would view as incentivizing, some type of sexual assault or something. So like they're going to flag you automatically and you're just trying to make it aware.
Yeah, I'm trying to give people resources, man.
Yeah.
I'm trying to help people, educate them. And they're not allowing it. That's why it's so important to sign up for our email, because the email, at least I know it's going to your spam box and I can just say, hey, check your spam, and move it to your inbox. But I know it's getting delivered. We have a text sign up too. So those are things that I can control the communication on. Really, social media, I will say that, a lot of our content gets shared. So that's good. At least people will share it. But I can't push it. I really can't push it. And we have to censor a lot of things. YouTube shuts us down almost every video gets blocked pretty much now. So
when predators are initially reaching out to minors via DM comments, things like that on social, are they trying to get any deeper than surface level initially? Or are they just literally trying to immediately move them to a different platform because the platform would shut them down if they insinuated anything?
Well, the platforms don't shut them down in the conversations, which is shocking to me. No, it's all of the above. The smart ones try to kick them over. I would say that it's just vast. Some of them are cautious, like, hey, really slow, could take weeks, maybe a month before you really get something that's, worthy of an arrest. Even when they know you're 11 and they keep communicating, you want to get them to do something more illegal than just communicating with a minor. They have to actually commit some certain crimes. So some of them will take their time and really try to fill it out. Others, like I said, I've seen multiple where they just like, hey, sexy, you want to make $300? You're beautiful. Really one of the hottest chicks I've seen. You could crush the money. They have emojis, $300 an hour sound good to you? Like that's the first one. Like I said, some of them are copy and paste too. And they put their actual phone numbers in there, dude. Like, hit me up, and so it just depends. I'll give you we've recorded this and I've debated on putting it out there because I'm sure the social media platform would come after me, but we recorded some of these things where, we pretend to be these girls and we'll be on these accounts and we'll get a friend request and then we'll just hit accept. And within seconds, they're like, hey, hottie. And then all of a sudden we get 5 more friend requests. We're like, accept. Boom. 10 more, 25 more, 50 more, 100, 450 within a week. And you're looking at all these people that are now being introduced to an 11-year-old or 12 maybe online, 14 max. And you start looking at their profile and they don't have very many people following them, but they seem to be following thousands of people. And then you look at the people they're following. Well, they're all kind of identical. No wonder this platform is sending me identical people that have identical profiles. It's the algorithms are saying, oh, well, they should meet. It's insanity. I'm talking about real life 50-some-year-old men being introduced to an 11-year-old through a platform. That would be like me going to the grocery store, finding a grown man in the produce section and walking him over to a child in the ice cream aisle and saying, hey, excuse me 1 second. I think you guys should meet and talk. Yeah. That's absurd.
And these are all like real people. Like there's not a risk of them all being bots or anything like that?
No, they're pretty much real people. They're trying to maybe not use their face and they're just trolling around. Here's the other thing, man, I mean, literally could talk for hours about this, but what we found is an interesting place and a discovery that we found was, there's some of these influencer women with millions of followers, right? Guess who's going to go there? Predators. Why? Because they know that moms are probably following this influencer. And what's going to be on mom's account? Pictures of her children. If she loves them a lot, she wants to show pictures of them at their 10th birthday pool party with a bunch of 10-year-old girls. And then what's he going to do? Drool and probably save some of those photos. And then he's going to probably start storing some of those. And then maybe he creates a fake account. Then what does he do? He takes that account from those fake photos of these girls. It's not even from the girls' Instagram or whatever platform. It's from the moms. But he creates a fake one and then he starts messaging boys. And then he starts telling them, oh, hey, look at this picture of me and my friends by the pool for my birthday. You're cute. Whoa, boys like, what? Hot girl giving me attention. Start talking. And then he says, hey, you got any sexy pictures? The girl says that to the boy. Well, the boy's on fire. Yeah. What do you want? Well, send me something like this. Oh, I don't know. I've never done that before. It's fine. It disappears, right? Sends it, starts storing them. Now starts friending that kid's friends, parents, siblings. Send more. Send maybe some back to him. Maybe not fully nude. Maybe they're AI. I don't know. And then at some point he goes, oh, by the way, I'm not really a 10-year-old girl. This is all over. You can Google tons of these cases. You're not? No, I'm actually a grown man. And I'm friends with all your friends, especially at school. And I will distribute these if I don't get $10,000 within the next 24 hours. Well, sometimes they actually distribute them before they even make those threats. And the kid knows that it's all been out there. What happens? Suicide. Yep, that's true. Lots of these stories. Suicide. That's what happens. So that's what I'm saying. You got to be careful with your content. Why would you not have a private account locked down as an adult? I get it as a child. You know why children don't want to lock their account down to private? Because it's very visual to their peers of how popular they are by the number next to their name. Before, when we were in school, it was like, oh, you're popular. You have how many friends do you hang out with by the lockers or at lunch? Now the whole world knows how many friends you have. Not really your friends, but people in the teen era, if they have 46 friends with their social media versus somebody who has 1,046, what is that saying? I'm cooler than you. Oh, I'm important. Oh, I'm popular. I'm
And
cool.
it's crazy, man, because like, I mean, I put out a ton of content online. Like talk about nutrition, fitness, health, all that good stuff. And I try to be authentic and let people see the personal side of me too. I feel like it just makes me more relatable. So I'll show, the family going hiking or the family going fishing, whatever it is the family's doing together. And it's like, I obviously want to be genuine, authentic, and transparent, but I obviously don't want to put my kids at risk by having their pictures on there. But like, do you have to literally go to the extent of keeping everything locked down and, blurring out their faces and just all of that stuff? It's like, where do you draw the line?
I'll just tell you what I do. Okay. I think there's two things: your personal account and your business account. And I think that it makes it easier when it's your business for you to show you doing cool stuff and whatever. And then you have your personal account that is private. You can let certain people in. Because I understand you want to share your photos and your memories with your friends and the people that you're close to, but how many of those are, even if you have 250, how many of those are really you're close to? And I get it. And you stay connected. You see what's up with people. You see what they're doing, fun stuff, cool ideas, whatever it may be. When you're running a business, this is how I look at it. It's not personal. Okay. It's whatever your business is your business. And however you want to run that business is your business. Is it a do or die that your children are a part of your business's photos on social media? I don't know. I don't. So that's going to just have to be up to you, man. I know a lot of people who put their kids out there, and I'm not saying don't. And I don't want people to live in fear. I just want people to know what's potentially possible out there. And I don't know if it gets better or not. Hopefully with some of the restrictions, but I think with awareness and education and people getting it, I think it will get better. Here's something I would say. I actually did with my niece. She's followed by a couple thousand people, whatever. And I was like, hey, let's look at your followers. Let's go down the line and just look at them. And we just click on some and look like, do you know this person? Oh, let's look at their account. What are they doing? Like, you cool with them following you? I know you call it following. Again, I call it stalking. You never know who's stalking you. You just don't. It's like a creepy, weird stranger walking around and following you wherever you go and watching your every move and everything you do, what you're eating for dinner, who you're playing with, where you're going, what you're doing this weekend, who are you hanging out with. And so I guess it really comes down to, what do you want to do? It's really, what do you want to do? I also don't,
crazy,
my
man.
kids
It's
won't be seen
crazy.
anywhere because I don't want my kids to be a target. There's people who hate me, right? They hate what I do and they hate that I'm coming after them, right? So where's the biggest target for me to piss me off? My kids, right? Now, good luck getting inside of my place of living and past my dogs and everything else that I have barriers. But the reality is if somebody's going to go after somebody, the biggest target to go after you is through your children, period. And so for me, just living and doing what we do and publicly face forward doing this, I take a risk of pissing a lot of people off, and so I don't want my kids' faces out there. My wife knows that too. Like, she doesn't post pictures of our kids. They don't want to know.
Yeah, that 100% makes sense in your line of work for sure. I mean, I would imagine you got a lot of people with you in the crosshairs because you're taking from them what they're desiring, as sick as that may be as a desire.
Their drug. It's their drug. And I'm trying to put them away.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remove them from society. And they don't want that. They don't want to live behind bars.
Is there, so like, I feel like like parenting is obviously very important with all of this, like having those conversations with your kids, giving them the perspective, giving them the idea of what to look out for. But on a bigger picture, like, is the trajectory moving in the wrong direction? Like, is it getting worse? I would assume with social media, with technology, with the digital age, like, it's certainly not getting any better.
Well, I think there's two distinctions to make right here. One is social media getting better, and then is people's awareness and understanding getting better. What I can tell you right now from real life experience is talking with a 26-year-old who came to an event that we had to educate awareness, that type of thing. And there was a lot of people gasping, older people like, oh my gosh, are you kidding me? I can't believe that. Oh my goodness. And then after about an hour, she raises her hand and says, I can't believe how shocked people are. Like, this is my life for the last 10 years, why I got off of social media. Because this is what I live with. This is, as a child, even parents, attractive women, moms get solicited, And so I think people now, because so many people never had this experience, like, is it really real? Does that really happen? And so many people have now had it personally. And what's amazing to me, I love this, the younger generation are really being like, hey, this is unacceptable and something needs to be done, because the older generation is like, what's Snapchat? Right?
Yeah.
How would they even know what to fight against? And so the younger generation is like, hey, you know what? This happened to me and I don't want it to happen. And something needs to be done. And they're actually building on campuses like, hey, we need to talk about this and what can we do to educate it, right? Some of our education, we're trying to get into the schools through our school resource officer program too. I have a school resource officer who's on my board of directors, and he's implemented it into several schools and had people come forward and in because of this training. And I think that the more education, the more awareness, that they're becoming harder targets. And that's what I always say. How do you make your child a hard target?
Yeah.
One, a conversation, education, all those things, because when they know, they're harder to penetrate. It's the kids that don't know.
Yeah.
And so honestly, I think it's getting a lot better. Here's the other thing I know is getting better, because I'm at these conferences all over from states, hundreds and hundreds of police officers who focus specifically on trafficking and child sex crimes. In 3 years, the amount of officers in states has doubled or tripled that show up to these things. So that's key. People are now aware that, hey, this is happening. The approach law enforcement is taking is remarkable. I would say the resources that are available to law enforcement, I mean, just think about us in the last 2 years. We are able to provide equipment, technology, all kinds of things, no red tape, no waiting, no budgets, no nothing, next day. And then bring in training that's not even provided. There's no actual, how do I run these operations? The government's not teaching them. There's no classes that the government's teaching them, right? They have to go to some conference that's put on. Their department has to send them there, put them up for a hotel for a week, and send several investigators, cost them a fortune, where we come right to their department in their jurisdiction. They pay nothing. So now they're out there, and then we move to another state. Now they just go crush.
Mm-hmm.
They just continue to crush. So is it getting better? Absolutely. Because when law enforcement understands, we still have some ways to go. Law enforcement is already on the forefront of change. Now we have to change prosecutors, right? The judicial system. All that has to change. And I think, I know in my experience, when you're working with prosecutors and attorneys who have been firsthand involved with these and actually sat with a child and saw them destroyed and their person gone from them, they're the ones who fight hard. It's the people who don't have much experience in these crimes, or understand it, or maybe believe that it's not happening, or maybe they're involved, I don't know, that don't give it much attention. I think those are the ones that we need to focus on. I think there's a lot of pride and ego in some of these people that need to just check that and think about the kids and start prioritizing our kids. I mean, I've done videos. We have to, and our government has to make this as important as the war on drugs has been for the last several decades. Because I think that this is a war against our children's innocence. I call it the war for innocence. And we have to start providing the funding for training. We have to start building task forces like a drug task force. Because just, again, go to our social media. Just recently, 13 arrested in 48 hours. That was all three of my team members who go out and train were part of that. One of them led that whole operation. And he's been doing this for 5 years. They've arrested almost 400 people in one state, pretty much. It's proven this is happening, and it's going to continue to happen. We need cops to be able to go out. What is the number one thing they say? We don't have the resources. Great. Well, then let's build a task force, which is kind of what we're doing. And I'm not going to build an actual task force. I'm just going to take, well, two major investigators that run it. And then once a month, they're going to call up their buddies from all the other departments and say, hey, remember that training we went to and we did that undercover operation? We arrested those dudes. Yeah. Hey, well, it's time to do that again. Because I got a bunch of guys. We got all the warrants and everything's done. So on Friday, you guys good with doing a roundup and going to a place of work or house and some meetups and just cleaning up? You bet we are. It doesn't take a whole lot.
Yeah.
And so I think that we need the government to just start focusing funds on this type of stuff and make it a priority. Honestly, they just need to make a priority.
It should be a priority for sure. I mean, everybody that I've talked to on the podcast that dives into like deep emotional issues that have manifested themselves throughout their entire life, like so many of those conversations have stemmed from childhood abuse. And I feel like if we start nipping that in the bud, then the world would get better, humanity would improve. What over the last 2 years, since you've been doing this for 2 years with The Innocent, what has the landscape been with AI? Because like, how do you even know it's real anymore? Like, was that going to have a pretty big impact on what you're seeing online?
That's interesting. So when I first started this, and we haven't talked too much publicly about it, but now it's everywhere. But you know, most of our girls are AI. It's illegal to actually use a child in a photo. So you have to get somebody who's 18 that looks like a child. And there's apps and stuff that can make them look younger. But, you know, these guys get clever and they're like, well, if you're not a cop, I want a picture that looks like this. And you're like, okay, here you go. And they think it's a real photo. So now there's been a little bit of pushback, a little bit sometimes with different prosecutors and certain things. But we've also been able to get through some legislature to just change a word to where it says believes to be 11 years old or whatever it means, right? So if the law now states that believes to be. So they were fighting that it's not really a victim. And we're saying like, look, it's a fishing lure. Would you admit a real fish or a lure, right? Like, let's not argue with that. Here's the thing. I think I have issues with certain things about AI that kind of concern me, but I use AI every day, every single day. And I think that most people probably need to. But I would say that depending on the question you're actually asking and wanting to understand is people who are developing AI, child sexual abuse material, pornography, they're no different. They should be treated just like somebody who's creating real photos. You're fueling an addiction and probably promoting the acceptance of it being okay and accepted to have children naked.
Yeah.
It's not acceptable. Completely unacceptable.
No, I totally agree, man. It's unfortunate that we are so sick as a species that this is even an issue. Like, it just is beyond me, but it is very evidently an issue and needs to be addressed. But man, it is, especially now as a parent, I keep going back to that, but like when you're a parent, you put everything in your own shoes. Like, what if this was happening to my kid? And it's like zero tolerance whatsoever.
Zero tolerance. Well, and I also ask as a parent, what would you do? Or what wouldn't you do? You know, really, if it was your child. You know, I see on the internet, somebody does this to somebody's daughter and then they end up going and murdering that individual. You know, or they take it out in the courtroom or whatever it may be, and it's justifiable. You know, I could understand that feeling. We deal with that all the time. It's probably one of the largest struggles in the last 5 years of my life in this workspace is the anger and controlling it, right? Because it's like, to me, and I obviously have personal ties to it, so it's probably worse, but the level of injustice of an adult versus child is beyond comprehension, right? Like, so how do you, I get it. I get it why people get angry about it. And also on that note, I think it's important for people to understand that there's a lot of somewhat vigilante groups out there that, you know, are making tons of dollars off of the million subscribers they have because they're going out with their cameras and setting up these meetups with predators, think they're a kid. But that person doesn't get arrested. Number one, they probably get smarter. Number two, even if you hand that case over to law enforcement, prosecutors barely take law enforcement cases that have been handed over to them through training that are like hand delivered, perfect, every I's dotted, every T's crossed, and they still struggle. Be like, oh, I don't know, I got to keep my record of wins up. I don't know if I'll lose this one, or they're going to plea out of court. So leave it to law enforcement, and that's why I love what we do. Like, we're just equipping law enforcement to go out and do their job effectively, to be efficient. As much as we all want to go out and take a bat to these people, like, it doesn't really help the situation. It helps you feel better, but it doesn't really help the situation. So that's why I always try to say, like, hey, those organizations and stuff, that's cool. And I know it's fun, it's entertainment, but let's move the needle.
Yeah.
Let's make actual impact here.
Well, you're definitely doing that, man. You're fighting the good fight and making a difference for sure. How do people get involved, help, learn more? Like, where do you want to direct them? Definitely to your social where you've got these examples, but where else should they go?
Yeah, on our website, theinnocent.org is really where you're going to be able to get this information. Please sign up for the email because we're going to be able to deliver you things that I think you're going to want, to be honest with you. So that would be the first easy thing for you to do, sign up for the email. Just start going through some of the tabs with the community link. Man, there's so many things, but the community link is something where if you want to spearhead in your town, these efforts, some of this technology, this training come to your area where now your kids can be protected. It's very minimal costs. You can set up a fundraiser on that page. We'll build a personal website for you. All the information is there. And then you can rally some people doing events. And listen, I'm telling you, I've seen simple events make a difference. Like, there's somebody right now, they're going to do this wreath building thing. A couple of these nights where people get together, they donate money, they build these wreaths and they sell the wreaths. And then that money goes to the cause. I've seen lemonade stands. I've seen shooting competitions and guns. There's all kinds of cool things. We just did a ruck event where people did this ruck, for 75 minutes to raise awareness, and we had speakers. Like, there's all kinds of things you can do. Stay tuned. Please get on our email list because there's an education coming. I could be within a week or two that is really going to be helpful for people, one, to get educated, but then go out into their communities and educate their communities. Again, spread that web a little farther. So that's what I would do. I would just, check it out. I do have to say this. We're 100% funded by the people, right? We get no government funding. And so if you can become a protector, that's what we call, somebody who donates every single month. And we're about to launch this, but January is Human Trafficking Prevention Month. January 11th is Human Trafficking Awareness Day. And on that day, people wear blue. So on our store, theinnocent.shop, we have a blue shirt. If you sign up to become a protector for $25 or more, we're going to send you a free shirt for doing that. And that really helps us budget, plan with departments. When we know, like, we have this much income coming in, we can set like our schedule on trainings and stuff like that, and equipment and software, how many departments we can equip in the coming year, instead of guessing and that type of thing. And here's the thing, the reality is $10. If you only do $10, which I know to some people seems like a lot, but it's a couple gallons of gas. If everybody that was watching did $10 a month, that moves the needle. I'm telling you, it does. I say that all the time, and people are like, well, does it really? Yeah, if nobody does it, it doesn't. But if everybody does $10, it makes a significant change here. And I'll promise you, every single dollar will stay in America to protect our kids. I promise you that right now.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. I am really truly impressed that you just freaking took it by the horns and created this resource, and you're doing it for the right reasons, man. I mean, it's unfortunate that it had to happen to you personally to be so drawn to it, but the fact that it did is allowing you to make a difference that is far beyond just you as an individual. And for that reason, man, I mean, I'm grateful for you because we need people like you out there fighting the good fight and being the light. So I truly appreciate what you're doing, man.
Thank you. It's an honor and a privilege. And honestly, it's something that we live to do. It's more rewarding than anything else I've ever done in my life.
I believe it. I believe it. Well, Nate, I'll do everything in my power to spread the word, man. If there's everything you need from me, you just let me know.
All right, man. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Take care.
All right. You too.